One claim that is often heard in regards to the horrific Hamas attacks against Israel on October 7th is that it didn't come out of nowhere, but rather as a result of the material harm Israel causes upon the Palestinian people, such as the siege of Gaza, for example. This claim is made by pretty much all pro-Palestinian people who seek to delegitimize Israel's counterterrorism war and operations. However, it is also believed by many public figures who aren't against Israel, and even many Israelis themselves, something which helped lead to policies that were proven to be disastrous, such as allowing food and qatari money to enter the Gaza Strip, which was primarily used by Hamas to conduct its eventual war against Israel. However, is that the case? Luckily, there has been research on how the economics of Palestinian society correlates with terrorism. Two people that researched this issue are Alan Kruger, who was a professor of economics at multiple Ivy League universities, and Claude Berebi, an economics professor from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In 2003, Alan Kruger published a seminal paper that debunked the common wisdom that terrorists are uneducated and poor. By looking at a data set of Hezbollah militants who died in action from 1982 to 1994 and a fair comparison group from the Lebanese population, he found that Hezbollah militants were better educated than their peers in the population and less likely to come from poverty. In the same paper, Kruger cited Claude Berebi's analysis of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Fatah terrorist attacks in Israel and the West Bank between 1987 and 2002. Berebi, in accordance with Kruger's own research, found that Palestinian terrorists and even suicide bombers were both more likely to have attended college than the average Palestinian, and less likely to come from poverty-stricken background. In fact, two of the suicide bombers in Berebi datasets were actually the sons of millionaires. From his own and Berebi analysis, Kruger concluded that there is little reason to the argument that a reduction in poverty or increase in education attainment would meaningfully reduce international terrorism. In 2007, Claude Berebi published a paper looking at the link between education and terrorism among Palestinian suicide bombers, which used an updated dataset that included failed and failed attacks between 2000 and 2006. His conclusion reaffirmed Kruger's findings. Both higher education and higher standards of living were found to be positively associated with participation in Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad and with becoming a suicide bomber. This data is affirmed by real-life anecdotal evidence. For example, the 9/11 terrorists came from wealthy and educated backgrounds, and many prominent jihadist leaders are multimillionaires and even billionaires. For instance, Osama bin Laden came from one of the wealthiest families in the Arab world, and most Hamas and Hezbollah leaders, such as Ismail Haniyeh, Khalid Mashhad, live or have lived very luxurious lives. Now, the question is, what actually drives the militancy and war against Israel? The answer for that is primarily ideological and religious aspirations. First thing, there is Islam. According to widespread beliefs among Muslims, Jews' holy lands, which were previously ruled by Muslims, especially Jerusalem and the Holy Land, which are considered holy in Islam, is forbidden and should be resisted. The Islamic nature of the Palestinian struggle is noticeable everywhere, whether it's Hamas seeing itself as a part of the wider axis of resistance that Iran holds, the obsessive usage of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the fact that there has been virtually no militancy being committed by Arab Christians, except for isolated cases. Islam, for its martyrdom cultures, gives Arabs the willingness to sacrifice and died in their cause against Israel. Another thing that drives the war against Israel is nationalism. Palestinians believed that the land the State of Israel sits on was stolen from them and should be returned back to them. This type of nationalistic struggles exists in many parts of the world, such as in the war in Ukraine, Nagorno-Karabakh war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and virtually nothing to do with poverty and material oppression. That's why not only does reducing oppression over the Palestinian people not reduce terrorism, it could actually increase it. That's because more prosperity and freedom allows jihadist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah more money and freedom to fund their operations against Israel, which is why policies such as the Oslo Accords, the withdrawal from Gaza, backfired on Israel and led to the tragic deaths of thousands of Israelis. Also, aggression by Israel was historically proven to have a deterring effect on the Palestinians and marginalized jihadist groups. For example, the current Gaza war led to Hamas being significantly marginalized militarily and will probably never threaten Israeli civilians again. The war in Gaza also massively changed the Palestinian opinion in Gaza against Hamas. For example, according to a poll done by Palestinian academics, in September, just 39% of Gazans think the attack was the right decision to do, compared to 71% in March, just a few months earlier. Another polling showed that support for Hamas was just 6%, with the majority of Gazans wanting peaceful solutions to the conflict, something which wasn't the case before the war.